because I'm from up there.
I was with Jim Weichert back in 1994 in New Jersey as a
Oh,
new
okay.
agent. And actually, my picture shaking hands with Jim Weichert is on my website from
Oh,
over
cool.
30 years ago. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Very cool. All right. Actually tilt it down just a little bit more. It was a little less headroom there. Perfect. Yep. That's great. That's great.
I can't see myself. I can
Oh, you
only
can't.
see you.
It looks good. That's perfect. What you just did is great. All right, Dawn. Let me, if you could, just to get the basics out of the way here. Let me have you say your name for me, spell it, and give me the name of your company if you could.
It's Dawn Cohen, Cohen, and I'm a broker and I own Premier Plus Realty. And the word Premier doesn't have an E at the end. There's another company in Naples that has actually been named in the lawsuit,
Oh,
Premier
okay.
Plus Realty Group. And so I'm not with them. I've
Got
been
it.
Premier Plus Realty since 2012.
Got it. Okay. And this is your own company, right? I'm just wondering.
Correct. I was Dawn Cohen and Associates, but unfortunately, I had to change my name because people felt it was owned by a woman, and that was a negative. So, my name isn't Bobby or Robert, so I changed the name to Premier Plus Realty to be more, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, let's talk about how you just kind of what we had talked about a little bit earlier. Tell me about this commission, the 6%. Where does it come from? How have brokers operated? Um, yeah, sure. Go ahead. There we go. Yeah, how has this operated over the years? Just tell me about it.
When I first moved to Sarasota, I went to real estate school and they told me immediately join the board. And the board basically had rules and regulations that protected agents, and we thought it was wonderful. So we all joined. We were a bunch of sheep and we just followed along. The brokers that I worked for had a requirement that we had to charge a certain rate. And they also required us to share that with another buyer agent. When I questioned it, I was shut down immediately and said, "Oh, no, 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 that's not how we do it." I always thought it was wrong in my heart and shared that information with sellers, but the sellers were unfortunately also brainwashed at this point into thinking that if they didn't offer a co-broke, that no one would show their home. And they were actually told this by various agents and company, not me, of course. But because they didn't believe it, it was hard for me to convince them. So I kind of had to go along with the flow. About 10 years ago, I broke free from that and said no more. And it was very hard convincing sellers that they only had to pay me a fee. Um, and I do have a closing document from a closing that I had in 2022, which is 2 years ago, where the all we did was innocently ask a buyer, would you be interested in paying your agent's fee? And they absolutely said yes. And we closed on a house, and the buyer paid all the fees, and the seller didn't pay one penny. They didn't pay one penny, and they were extremely happy because the first time in their lives they were introduced to a new idea. So that's what happened. It first happened when I moved to Florida, and like your question was, how did that start? And that's what we were told by our brokers.
Um, yeah. Why is this in your mind? Has this, process or cooperative, what's it called? Commission. Why has this been unfair over the years?
Well, anybody that really looks at the numbers knows we're just moving money around. So if you want to sell a house for 500 and a broker says you have to pay this amount of money and share it, the seller says, well, then we'll just raise the price of our house to pay all your fees. And so that's where the overinflated prices came in. Um, I think buyers agents just were told to tell buyers, you don't have to pay me, the seller will pay me, which to me is a red flag in the first place. Why would I hire someone that's getting paid by the seller's agent? It just doesn't make sense to me. Um, if you talk to anybody on the street, they don't understand this because they've been brainwashed for so many years. They just don't understand. They don't understand it. So I've been trying to push this for 10 years without any luck. And now finally, it's happened, and thank goodness, because the industry is going to get better and better, and I think it's going to be better for the consumer in the long run.
Yeah. And how is it exactly? How do you think it's going to help consumers in the long run?
Well, a lot of people are complaining that buyers won't be able to buy homes because when they get an FHA loan, they always ask the seller to contribute to their closing fees. I just flip it and ask a buyer to contribute to the seller's closing fees, and they do it willingly. Um, don't buy a house you can't afford. That's the bottom line. Buy it. Don't buy a house with no income verification. Remember the crash in 2008, which I predicted, by the way, when I saw all these people getting no income verification loans. It was a disaster. So people are going to still be able to buy homes. They're going to get gifts from their parents to purchase a home. It's not going to be a big deal. It's going to be more fair. A seller pays the person who works for them, and a buyer pays the person who works for them. When you go to the doctor's office, do you pay for the patient that the doctor's seeing after you? No. You only pay for your visit to the doctor's office. So,
And on that, you mentioned this earlier as well. Do you, it seems like was leading to, and I was reading some articles about it afterward, who said something similar with real agents saying very similar things, that it was leading to this process of steering, which is you can't, it shouldn't, is not allowed. So tell me a little bit about how this would lead some agents to steer buyers.
well, our MLS is set up to show a buyer's agent all of the back behind the scenes details. When I sit down with you as a buyer, I go on my MLS and show you the inner workings of our process. Agents have been hiding that from buyers for years. So an agent was literally able to go onto the MLS and cherry pick only the listings that they wanted to show the buyer. And when Zillow came along, it exposed that. And that's why consumers were like, well, how come you're not showing me this house? And the agent would make up some excuse like, oh, that one's under contract, or that one's not a good house. But basically, they were only showing you homes where they got paid the most commission. And it's getting worse now. Builders are now enticing agents to steer their buyer to their construction site by offering huge incentives. And in a market where the builders didn't need agents, they offered agents no money. But now, if you look at the new construction, if you're a buyer of new construction, beware. Your agent is going to get paid more from the construction owner just for bringing you to their model. And so that, to me, is called steering, because you're not showing all of the available properties to a buyer, just the ones you want to show them. And some companies like to show only their own listings because they get a bonus from the broker. So that, to me, is also not in the consumer's best interest. I show all the listings to my customer and they pick the ones they want to see. It's the consumer's right to choose.
How it should be. I mean, it should be about getting the best and most fair deal for the buyer and for the seller. I mean, it's just common sense and common courtesy. Everybody should be able to have the right to choose the house that they're going to live in for the in most cases the rest of their lives. I mean, right? I mean, isn't that the idea here?
That is the idea. And also, one of the things that we do at our company, which is unique, is if a buyer wants to make an offer on a house, I will call the listing agent and the seller, and we get everybody on the same phone conversation. This is something that's been also withheld from consumers for years. Agents never let the buyer and seller chat. And I think that's the best way to come to a meeting of the minds, where you have an offer to present. If you present it directly, you know it's being presented properly. I've gotten offers that were faxed from other agents, and I have to present it to the seller not knowing any of the details. I end up having to call the lender, call the other agent, speak to the buyer, let the seller listen to my conversation with the buyer, saying hello to the seller. It's completely transparent. That's how it should be, with the guidance of a real estate professional who's been doing it for 30 years, who may or may not know most of the pitfalls in this business. So we want it to be more transparent. And what the real estate industry has done is keep everybody at arm's length and saying it's for the good of the consumer when it's not. So
Do you feel like kind of vindicated here that it sounds like been talking about this for decades?
I have been preaching this for years, and I did lose a lot of agents. A lot of agents left my company thinking that I was crazy, that nobody would. I've sold dozens of houses. I've had buyers pay dozens of commissions. I've had sellers be extremely happy. The problem is I'm just one person, David fighting Goliath, and it's been an uphill battle. But now I feel very excited that all the real estate agents that got their license, who work as waiters and waitresses who sell one house every 5 years, which is not a service to the public, even if you're helping your family buy a house. I mean, I've been doing this for over 30 years. I know what I'm doing, and I'm completely transparent about it. I don't hide anything. And that has been a flaw because the industry has been so flawed into scamming and fooling the public. Now, finally, here comes an honest person that wants to do the right thing and help people, really help people, not fake help people. So I'm excited, and I'm curious to see how many agents drop out of the business. I do have some closing documents here showing that the buyer paid a commission. I do have something called a buyer broker agreement, which we've been using for over 30 years, which is in the MLS that consumers have never been made aware of, or agents. The brokers never discuss it. Now all of a sudden they're discussing it because they have to. My buyers always sign a buyer broker agreement so they know that I'm working for them. These are the price reductions just this morning. We're seeing over 950 to 1,000 price reductions a week. Prices are coming down. There are more and more limited listings, which means they're for sale by owners, which is wonderful. I call for sale by owners all the time to see if they need my help, and a lot of them do. And I tell them, I'll just have the buyer pay me a small fee if I get a buyer, and they agree to that, and they love it. So the industry is changing, and I'm very excited.
All right, that sounds great. I think that's really about it. Is there anything else you want to add?
I would really like consumers to really research the people that they hire. You know, when you hire a contractor or a doctor, you do research them. You got to research your agents. Don't just hire someone who got a license last week because you want to do them a favor. You're not helping anybody. You're ruining the industry, and you're not helping yourself. And I want consumers to know that I am not a member of the Board of Realtors. I never believed I had to join. They made us believe we had to join. I have separated myself from that organization, and now I work for the consumer. I don't work for the board protecting agents. I work for the consumer, and that's how it should be. And I really want to thank you for this opportunity, because I've been on the news several times for many years talking about this, but it didn't really catch, and now it's going to stick.
Great. All right, Dawn. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. And you said you're on the National Board of Real Estate, right? Because that's completely separate.
I started the National Board of Real Estate as a joke because
Oh.
it was a free organization that it wasn't a union. It was a free organization. I had about 150 members, and it was, you know, we did education classes, we did free training. We talked about the buyer broker agreement. It was sort of a competition for the board that wasn't part of the board, but it's still in existence. It's just kind of lulling along, but I think now it's going to take off.
All right. Sounds good. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye.